Okay, trivia time. Time is on the clock. Name 5 things that automatically come to mind when thinking about wealth management or financial advisors. Ready? Go.
That's easy. Bored, painful, rather listen to my in-laws, numbers.
Almost there.
Torture?
We have a winner. Let's tell him what he's won. You've won the PennyWise Financial Podcast. Yes, it's a financial show, but we talk to you like human beings talk. Sure, we do the traditional retirement planning and money management, but we also help plan for other decisions, like buying a car, selling a home, buying vacation properties, or selling a business. We're more than financial advisors to you. PennyWise Financial, brought to you by Monarch Wealth Management. This is PennyWise Financial, and this is Constantine Kitrinos and David Georgiev.
Constantine with PennyWise Financial Podcast and Dave Georgiev. Today we've got a special guest today, our tech titan, Justin Basch from Basch Solutions. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you for having me. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Well, Justin.
Happy
How's
Friday, boys.
Yeah.
It's a nice Friday because I'm not day trading today, so I'm not stressed. I'm not gambling.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Justin. One thing I wanted to start the show off with was you, and I mean you, and I'm putting you in quotes because you're the millennial. We need a name for it. The millennial investor. That it's such a unique population. I probably have 5 clients who have the majority of their investments with me, their retirement stuff, their long-term stuff, but they text me almost every day with, what about this stock pick? What about that stock pick? And they're using the TDs, the Schwabs, the Robinhoods. So I guess I'm just asking you, tell us a little bit about what your stock market experience is and what do you do?
So my background is owning Basch Solutions, marketing company, tech company. So I naturally spend more time on the computer. And I definitely have a personality that likes to be hands-on for stuff. And we've had many conversations offline about the fact that, I think if you're investing is long-term. Investing is never short-term. Very, very rarely is an investment something really short-term. But with day trading, and especially, it's 50-50 with millennials. I don't think, now that I'm 34, I think I'm technically not a millennial. I was
going to ask that.
I think there's a different name for me. But I do watch the younger kids, like in their 20s, that are on Robinhood. There's an athlete client of mine. Like we text about, our Robinhood portfolios and this and that. But after the quarantine started and I saw the stock market dip, I was watching it because I'm someone who, whether I have money in something or not, like when it comes to the stock market and all that, I watch it. I pay attention to it. So finally, after watching everything, I finally got in and started playing with it. And it's legalized gambling. It's what it is. It's a rigged matrix. And it's like you have to buy a stock at, if you're like day trading / short-term investing, you buy a stock at the bell, and literally you wake up and see, is it up or is it down? You can day trade. Like I've made some trades where I watch something go up and down. Finally, like, okay, this pattern is going to continue. I bought on the dip. I sold at the high point. But some of these stocks, it's like this morning you wake up, Spirit Airlines is up 17%. So unless you bought at the bell, like you can't really buy, so it's like, but it's like sports gambling. You wake up and you see, okay, what was the final score? Did I win or lose? So for me, it's like we were talking about like day trading, especially like this kind of stuff. For me, it's more fun. Like I like throwing $50 on a sports game, something to squeeze. It's activity. I think if you're trying to make money, then day trading so risky, especially if you don't have like the equal amount in long-term investments or something. But I have been having fun. I have been blowing up your phone like a wild man, right? Bragging about some of my trades and then crying about others.
I wonder if
2 days ago
there's a gap there between the people that used to, go online and gamble with DraftKings and whatnot. No sports are really happening right now.
100%.
That coupled with people being home with nothing else really to do.
Bloomberg just put out, I hate Bloomberg. They put a hit piece out on Dave Portnoy, who owns Barstool today. And, he's been day trading with like $5-6 million, and he's got a cult following. So people are watching him, and people are doing the same thing. And the article that Bloomberg put out even mentioned, like, I skimmed it, but I thought at the end it was like some kid who likes sports betting started with like $50 and he's up to $260. So even on a really small scale, I think people who can't bet, they can't go to casinos. There's especially with how volatile the stock market is right now. I mean, was it down 1,800 points yesterday, up back 800 points today? Like, that's like the crypto market. That's
what I was going to ask you. Like, were you like when crypto was hot to trot, and I was getting every third person was calling me asking me about crypto? Were you in on that trend as well?
Yes, but I like crypto from a long-term standpoint. I like the technology behind it, understanding that it's replacing certain things. I got initially to Ripple when it was at 60 cents, rode it up to like $2-3. And from there, as soon as that came up and then it crashed, I learned that it's going to be a very long time until I think cryptocurrency is something really stable, especially to invest in. So much like day trading, I've bought and sold crypto. It's like a short term. Hey, crypto is very similar with trends where you have a bad day. Like yesterday, Ripple's been hovering around 20 cents. Yesterday, it crashes to 18 or 17. Great opportunity to buy. Today, it's already back up to 20. So similar with you can almost day trade cryptos, and you have a lot of people who do. But yeah, I've been in on the whole crypto thing too.
Yeah. If memory serves me well, I think it was you who told me to buy Ripple back in the day, and I did. And this was right before the beginning of the end of the whole crypto. When everything was hot. And
I kept readjusting my positions. So as I'm readjusting positions, everybody's like, well, do you like Ripple? I'm like, yeah. Like one of my clients who's pretty well known was texting me, same thing. Like, okay, do you like it now? I'm like, look, I'm buying it. I've bought everything between, I think the lowest I've ever bought it was like 16, 17 cents. And the highest I bought it was like $2. But you got to, like Matt bought in, I think, at the absolute peak. He saw it rise from like 60 cents to, I think the peak was like 330, and then he got in. And I'm like, Matt, if you watch the stock market, never buy after when Hertz is up 126%. You don't buy then. But yeah, a lot of people bought in just thinking it was going to moon infinitely, and it didn't.
You said a couple things that are important. Number one, you said you're having fun. And I think that's important to know the difference between investing.
Correct.
Investing is not always fun, but it is something that's necessary if you really want to reach a goal, long-term goal. But then the other part is never risking as much as you're willing to lose. And it sounds like you understand that concept. I have no problem with it. I'm not going to say that everybody should have all their accounts or all their assets with us. They don't. Yeah. People like to have some things on the side to have some fun with.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong.
And I think, speaking to the fun of it, I've been telling Dave all the numbers of buys and sells and profits and all that. And I told him what I made off it. And he was like, okay, well, how many hours did you put in to make that? And I go, I don't know. For me, it's like, I'm not doing this particularly. Yes, if you gamble, you can win money, and that's an incentive to gamble or day trade or whatever. But I'm not doing this to say, oh my gosh, I need money. Let me go try to day trade stocks. Like, I'm something to squeeze. You watch the news, you see news break about certain companies, and rumors come out, and you're squeezing for it to go up, and you're watching your profit go up, and that's fun. So for me, it's like, I'm not putting more into, and yes, I do use the millennial app Robinhood. I don't like it. I wish I had a different app, but I'm not big time yet for like an E-Trade brokerage account. But like just watching the balances, and I don't have more money in there that it's like, oh my gosh. And speaking to the point of having a long-term investment, like, look, if you can't afford to lose the money, you shouldn't be investing it, if that's what you're calling it. Like, investing is never, and trust me, I see every disclosure, every disclaimer with, this is not a sure thing. Like, don't, and I think Dave and I talk strategies all the time about, like, okay, how about you manage this much money safe long term, and then how about I have this much money to play with, knowing that it's diversified. Some's long term, some short term, some's just fun money.
Justin,
Yeah.
I know you don't fall under the millennial quote unquote category based on
Thank
your
you.
birthday, but quick question. You mentioned platform, Robinhood,
Yep.
which is synonymous with the whole millennial platform as far as what they're using. What made you choose Robinhood?
I don't remember. If I had to guess, I would probably say that it's one of two things. I'm a big user interface guy. So for me, like Chase pisses me off to no end. And everybody keeps telling me this bank's good. Canandaigua National Bank's good. I look at somebody says Canandaigua National, you should move all your business there. Literally, the first thing I do is look at their app. Because I'm in the app all day, every day. I'm depositing checks. I'm moving money. I'm looking at things. I'm paying bills. So the app is super important. So for me, when I actually think I got Robinhood initially because they were going to start offering crypto on there. So then I figure, hey, if I can do crypto and stocks, nice. Yeah. And then once I look at like the user interface, then I look at, okay, hey, no fees and this and that. And you can pay $5 a month and have $5,000 worth of instant deposits, and it made sense the way it ran in the user interface. So I think for me it was just ease of use and being able to open the app, see everything easily. And I don't think Robinhood's perfect. It was just one that app looked cool, was easy to use.
Honestly, all those same things. Cost was their number one driver because it was free trading, right? Who doesn't like free? And essentially, you get the same type of service you would expect from a TD or Schwab, et cetera, which they used to have costs. And then it was the interface. It's really the app that designed the way they communicate with people. It's slick. It's easy. It's easy to understand. The interface is really user-friendly, and that's what drives a lot of traffic. And honestly, I can't knock the platform. The one thing I can say about it is the trading execution is not as precise as you might get at like a TD or Schwab when they used to charge for it. Now, all the trading platforms are zero. So they're all trading on the same level playing ground. The only difference I'll say is I question the execution even at TD and Schwab now, some of the bigger players, where they're offering quote unquote free platforms to trade when you can upgrade. So listen to this. You can upgrade for better execution. So what does that mean? I get crappier execution if I do free. So if I put in a trade to buy Apple, and Justin, you go in and do the same thing, you're going to get a better price than I would if you pay a subscription free. That's what they're implying.
Yeah, see, and I'm so like, I don't even know that exists. I don't even know that there's execution or better execution. I say, hey, Baba's at 199. I love Baba under 200. I'm going to buy.
You do love Baba under 200.
I mean, hey, it's at 219 right now. It's a great buy at 199. But I like Baba at 199. Or what I do is I watched it. I watched it go down because they were worried about it being delisted, and I watched it. Got some at 201. It went down to 199. It's okay. I want X amount, and I put the trade in. That was it. Now I know I own X amount at this, and literally that's it. Nothing about execution. I wouldn't even know that far. And I think you have people like me that I'm learning more. Like my whole world, my mind exploded when I learned about margin investing. My mind just was like, wait a minute. You'll almost give me house money to play with at 5% for the year. I'm doing the math like, so $50 for $1,000 for a year. And I'm like doing the math and I'm like, this is interesting. I never knew this stuff existed. And I also think I can't speak to a lot of people my age, but I didn't go to college. We were talking about this before the podcast. I was so broke that I was living out of my car. I had the most informal experience with finances. I was like a turtle fighting off my back for a decade to get to where I am now of having a successful company, making good money. So for me, I can't say that I'm like, I would almost love to see what a 20 to 30-year-old is learning through college right now that is putting what's putting their eyeballs on Robinhood and these other apps. I'm as curious as you to that degree of like, yeah, why are they doing that? I get, for me, I'm a tech guy, user interface is important, whatever. But yeah, the more I learn about this trading world, it's It's wild.
To your point, though, Justin, I think the examples you gave are exactly the same reasons that most of these people are joining the Robinhoods and stuff like that. And when you do bring up points like trade execution, stuff like that, they'd say the same thing. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, what are you talking about? You know?
And I understand through trading cryptos that, like, if you trading cryptos, I learned the difference between a limit order and a market order. And I never bought market because I knew all of a sudden I like Ripple at 20 cents. And by the time the market order's done, I might get it at 20.5 or 21. I didn't realize that you got to do a limit order and get it for exactly what you want. But yeah, it's an interesting world.
Guys, this is a good time. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with the show.
Here's Constantine Kitrinos, Managing Partner and Financial Advisor at Monarch Wealth Management.
Are you retiring in the next 7 to 10 years? When do you plan on taking Social Security? How do you make your 401k last the rest of your life? Do you take a full pension or leave a benefit for your spouse? How do you protect your assets as you age? Similar to health matters, your financial well-being in retirement doesn't happen overnight. From retirement planning to estate planning, Monarch Wealth Management takes a holistic approach for your retirement plan.
Monarch Wealth Management. Our guidance, your future.
This is PennyWise Financial, and this is Constantine Kitrinos and David Georgiev.
And welcome back to PennyWise Financial. Dave Georgiev here with Constantine Kitrinos and our guest for the day, Justin Basch of Basch Mania, Basch Solutions. Anything else you want to throw in there, Justin?
I got to come up with a company name that doesn't have my name in it. Like, moving forward, I said I would never do that again. You know what? It's not. It's just like Bashmania came about because back in, I think, 2001, I was in high school. I made a website and I loved WWE. So I played off Hulkamania. I made Bashmania. And the podcast was just an excuse to bring back. I've always wanted to use that for something. This was finally. But I'll never put Bash in another company name again.
All right. Fair enough.
You need a parent company.
Basch Solutions may become a holding company, but I'll never include Bash again.
What about BFG?
That's a side hobby.
We kid around with Bash. What is it? Bash Financial Global.
Because I was killing it so good with some trades. So I sent Dave a logo saying, we're taking applications, we're taking on new clients, business is booming.
Hilarious.
Love it. And to piggyback off it, we'll step back a little bit. I know you mentioned some things about margin, which is good, but also scary for some what I call new investors that don't really understand things. But I want to talk about the trading trends we've seen. People investing in bankrupt companies, oil companies, energy companies, airlines, cruise ships that are basically shut down, can't operate, have zero revenue, and newer investors that are sitting around with a lot of time on their hands saying, geez, this is a great opportunity. And it may be, in 5 or 10 years that we may look back and say, geez, what an obvious opportunity. But I have a hard time with those trades, especially smaller companies, what we call penny stocks or unlisted pink sheets, trading for $1 or $2, get pumped up on Twitter and social platforms. The way that people communicate today, the information that's available, it's so readily available. I mean, something could happen right now, and in 5 minutes, millions of people know about it, and they're trading and reacting to it. I think that's both good and bad. If you're a malicious person, you can use that to your advantage to, let's say, come up with Justin Basch Financial, and this stock goes public, and it's trading for $1 a share. All of a sudden, we blast something on social media. It's trading at $2 or $5. If we were divisive and wanted to use that to our advantage, we sell the stock. All the new investors are caught with their pants down. And I think that's happening more and more. And it's unfortunate that some of these people are diving in, piling into stocks. And I saw it happen in 2008 too. And GM was on the verge of bankruptcy. I'd have investors coming in saying, I want to buy a GM stock. I said, do you understand what you're buying? You think of retail companies like JCPenney or Macy's. People shouldn't be piling into those stores right now that are closed and trying to, scatterbrain and go online and digital.
Hurts.
You price it. Hurts. Another good one. Another great one. So, I hear that and sense a little bit of pause. And I hope that a lot of newer investors aren't getting that experience and saying, geez, I've invested and lost a ton of money buying on margin, et cetera, leveraging. And that's where the fear starts to set in for me as far as investment.
I like margin from a standpoint of, one of the reasons I used it initially was I'm like, man, I don't really want to deposit more money. And as I learned that I could use it, it made sense, knowing at the same time I'm learning about it, hey, there's a margin call if this goes south. And I was really like, before I bought anything, I've been watching I always watch it, whether I'm investing stuff or not. And I saw certain things, and I try to be as diligent as I can. I talk to people who know more than I do, and I look at certain things, and I try to make the most disciplined decision I can. And when I saw certain things, like I bought BABA at 202, and then it went to 199, and I'm like, I like this a lot. And then I bought more with margin, and I've done that with a couple. I think it was, I can't remember if it was another one, but then right away, like it went right up, and that was that. There's other times where I've made, I think the worst trade I made was buying Spirit. I bought it too high. I bought it on the dip, and then it dipped more. It was like the tail before a couple days ago. But, I think you just got to be disciplined, and it's house money, but it's house money that you can pay out of your pocket. If you don't have that ready to go, don't use it as like, it goes back to the initial principle of, if you can't afford to lose it, don't use it. The same, I think you have some people that are like, listen, Dave and I were talking about it, like gambling addiction is a serious thing. And if you have somebody who, especially the penny stock, like the stocks I've been playing with are like Boeing, BABA, Carnival, Spirit. They're not stocks that are like these penny stocks that you see, or they're not even volatile. And Robinhood does say, like, Robinhood will change your margin level based on if the stock is low, medium, or high when it comes to volatility. So there is that they do kind of say, yeah, we're not letting you use margin for this. Like they'll cut it right down and say, if I have 5,000 in margin available and you go to a stock with high volatility, they'll say like 500. So they are trying to gauge it a little bit and say, yeah, this is more of a volatile stock. We're not giving you your 100% margin. We'll give you 10% or whatever. Because I'm sure they're seeing that trend too and trying to make sure they don't get caught.
Absolutely. I'm curious too, on Robinhood, about a month ago, maybe it was, 6 weeks ago, they had a hiccup where their platform was shut down for basically a day or two of trading. Did you get caught up in that? I know people were saying they lost a lot of money.
I didn't. All these things, like I'm the more I watch some of it on Twitter, the more I see some people are like, even the only thing I experienced was last week. There was a time where for like 20 minutes, no, maybe like 10 minutes, the screen wasn't loading. And that's like, man, if you're trying to get in or get out at one point, but that's with all technology, no matter what you use, everybody. I've had a couple clients that get mad if their website goes offline for 2 minutes. And I'm like, are you on Instagram? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, have you ever had an issue loading Instagram? Well, yeah. How much money do they have to keep their app online? Like, it's going to happen. So I think when I see an outage issue, I think you definitely got to take it into consideration and say, I want whatever's going to have the you got to look at reviews for apps too, because apps and platforms, you can have a great platform. If your app sucks or has issues and people aren't shy about it, if you go in a review and 35 people are saying this app keeps crashing, this app keeps crashing, even if it's a matter of use the desktop version versus the mobile, but I think you definitely got to look into those things. Thank God I didn't get caught up and I would have freaked out.
Sure.
Well, I can say from our standpoint on the investment side, even our app, the LPL app, not to bash it, but it's not the best. I mean, it's horrible, and they're working to evolve that. But even my wife with real estate, their real estate app is horrible. I don't know who's doing it for them, but they really need that revamped.
Yeah, a lot of people do it. I always tell people, from my standpoint, you can imagine. I mean, I've had my company for 12 years. I've been doing websites since 1999. I've had more people tell me I got a great idea for an app, and my first response is always, it's probably already done. And my next response is, if it can be web-based, don't make an app. If it has nothing to do with native iPhone or Android functions that you need, let it be web-based. Apps are just, everybody wants to get in on the app rush right now.
Yeah, and I remember even years ago, that like when apps first started coming out, that was the hottest thing. Was like if you could create an app, and you hear
Yep.
all those crazy stories. Justin, I'm going to pivot off that and kind of head towards just kind of everything in the news media and kind of more with COVID.
Yeah.
How has COVID affected your business, and like has it gone up, like has it boomed? Has it gone down
Yeah.
dramatically? Can you kind of touch base on how just the current environment has affected your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think internally, since the day this company was founded 12 years ago, everybody involved that works here works remotely. So, from a structure standpoint, we were all set up for the remote work and we weren't caught off guard by so many people being disrupted. Some of our clients were disrupted and said, hey, we got to put a pause on this right now. There's so much uncertainty. And so, initially, for us, it was okay, how many people are going to cancel monthly services with us? Because we build a lot of websites, but we do consulting, we do content creation, we do social media management, social media strategy. So we do a lot of monthly services. And we were, okay, how many people are going to cancel monthly? And are people going to stop like temporarily having websites built? Like we're not revamping now, or we're not going to build their launches now. And so that was a couple weeks of not knowing. But right away, it started, hey, we need e-commerce. Hey, can we do this? Hey, I don't have the time. Can you make these changes? So initially, there was a ton of not temporary, but like short-term income and revenue that came in because people needed the help going more digital. So initially, it was kind of a wash. I'd say now it's rebounding nicely. I think it's been a wake-up call for many that you need to be invested digitally to succeed in 2020. And now more than ever, you have companies like, Google and Facebook and others that are saying, hey, permanently you're allowed to work from home. As more people are going digital, your company only needs to go more digital. And if large companies like Facebook and Google and others are going remote, that's going to trickle down and smaller companies are going to do the same thing. So we have people saying, hey, if everybody's working at home, can you build us a portal instead of a client login, an employee login, so everybody can download files, kind of like a file share with different things. So for us, it's been a lot of, you do have, thankfully, our portfolio is pretty diverse. So certain athletes, they're not impacted. Certain businesses are booming. Other businesses, some businesses are saying, hey, we need more help acquiring new customers now, because we were picking them off like fish in a pond, and now people are thinking twice and it's harder to get new business. So some people are kind of forced to say, we need to do something. Can you help us? So I'd say as of right now, it's done pretty well. My concern from the minute this started was, what is the business going to look like in May, June, and July? It wasn't really about March and April, because our book of business is always like 60 days out if we're working on projects, if we're doing things. So I'd say as of right now, it's definitely looking good. And I'd say being in a digital space in the time where people are going digital has definitely been a blessing for the company.
There has to be a number of benefactors. If you look specific, like you mentioned, file share. So I think cloud storage.
Yeah.
I think anything that can be done online. How about the delivery services? So the businesses that you work with that are looking to go to a more mobile platform or digital platform to sell their products, who are they using to source the product and ship it? Is it like a FedEx? Would that be a benefactor? Or
So yeah, the shipping and shipping deliveries is at an all-time high right now. It's going bananas. And I think our clients where we've been impacted is there is a third-party company that will do everything. No matter what you want, there's a third-party service that will, instead of doing something native on your own website, you can use an app for it. Much like how Robinhood or other financial apps could potentially take you guys out of relationship, there's companies that could do that for us. And we've had people saying, like, there's a couple restaurants that are using different services like Talk, where you can go on and order. And it's getting to the point where they're like, hey, I think this is only going to become more and more. And they're taking an ungodly amount of fees and surcharges. Can we build in this functionality natively? So instead of them having to go to a third-party site, we can just do it on our website. So there's been a lot of people who want to stop paying these stupid fees, because when you're only doing a little bit of volume normally, it's not that big of a deal. Use it. You probably weren't going to get that business anyways. It's a bonus. Now that added service has become a standard and a norm in a company, they're realizing how hefty those surcharges and fees are, and they're trying to say, hey, how can we do this in-house? And maybe instead of paying, $500 a month infinitely, we pay $2,000 a month now, and we're good for 2 years, 3 years, whatever. So we've been doing that too, where people are trying to ask for help getting around using services that, if you don't, like, our platform is meant to scale. People can call us and say, hey, can you build a job application on our website so someone can submit their resume, apply for a job? No problem. Other people that don't have that functionality, or don't have us in their corner, or anybody in the tech space in their corner, they have to go pay to use a service. So we've been able to take our technology and help people save money by not using some of these services when you're set up to do it long term. If you're doing it just for a month or two, it's fine. But if you're going to do it long term and you're going to adapt this to your normal business model, it helps sometimes to own that technology.
Gotcha.
Perfect. This is a good place. Let's take a quick break and come back with the show.
Here's Constantine Kitrinos, managing partner and financial advisor at Monarch Wealth Management.
Are you retiring in the next 7 to 10 years? When do you plan on taking Social Security? How do you make your 401k last the rest of your life? Do you take a full pension or leave a benefit for your spouse? How do you protect your assets as you age? Similar to health matters, your financial well-being in retirement doesn't happen overnight. From retirement planning to estate planning, Monarch Wealth Management takes a holistic approach for your retirement plan.
Monarch Wealth Management. Our guidance, your future.
This is PennyWise Financial, and this is Constantine Kitrinos and David Georgiev.
Welcome back to the PennyWise Financial Podcast Show. We have our special guest, Justin Basch, the tech titan from Basch Solutions and Bashomania and a couple other companies. But Dave, why don't you bring us back into the third segment?
Tech titan. How about that for a title, Justin?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a tech titan, but hey.
You are now. You are today, buddy.
The Bible says, let another man praise thee, not your own lips. So technically, if someone else is praising me, I guess I'll take it.
Constance took care of that for you today.
Perfect. I love it.
So Justin, I kind of just want to take the last couple minutes, talk about some of your companies. My questions, I guess, are with Bashmania. I think it's cool. I'm not a big wrestling fan, I'm a big WWE guy.
Not a college and Olympic wrestling fan.
Correct.
Yep.
I'm not a big college wrestling fan, but I admire the work that you do, and obviously the athletes you have are just phenomenal. I watch tidbits here and there, but I guess a couple questions I had just in the whole college world of wrestling and sports in general is, how does it work? Like, some of these guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, are your clients?
Yep.
So you have contracts with them as far as tech or whatever, you build their websites or do their social marketing, social media, I should say. How does it work, and are there rules with that? Because I thought that in college,
there are, and I don't follow them. So sometimes you have to kind of, sometimes you have to, instead of asking for, I forgot what it is, ask for forgiveness instead of permission, something like that.
Right.
Right. So technically, I've got a lot of great relationships within wrestling, and I wrestled, I was no good, but Olympic gold medalists became my clients right when I started my company. Cal Sanderson, Jordan Burroughs, Jake Varner, Helen Maroulis, these are all clients of mine.
Yeah.
And I started the podcast because I preached to all my clients, you should have a podcast. And for me, I don't want to do a tech podcast. I don't want to do a marketing podcast. There's so many of those out there. I want to do something I have fun with, which is this. And a lot of my guests are clients or relationships I have in the sport. Some of those relationships are with wrestlers going into college, coming out of college. I just ask them, yo, you want to come on the podcast?
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten into any trouble yet, but I did have a D1 head coach that I know very well, so he wasn't yelling at me, but he texted me saying, hey, what's up with having our college guys on the podcast? And he's anti-media, so this wasn't like he was mad at me. He's very cautious with media.
Yeah.
And I said, just having fun, helping them share their stories, and they want to use their platform, giving them that ability to do so. He's like, well, did you go through our media relations or whatever person? And I'm like,
yeah.
No, I just texted him saying, hey, you want to come on the podcast?
Yeah.
And there was one kid that I did ask, and he said, let me ask my coaches. And he's like, no, I can't do it. So I'm like, okay. So, I think initially, right now, it's all things considered a little podcast. I don't think the NCAA is coming after a little podcast, let alone in wrestling. If I was having football players on or basketball players, I think it might be a different world. But, right now there's no wrestling going on. So I have until really October, November to figure out if this podcast continues to grow. I might have to figure out those things of, I see even the bigger players in the sport aren't necessarily going through the teams. They're just saying, hey, you want to come on? So I don't know the rules. I don't think I can get in trouble by having someone on. If I did, I'd say, look, I didn't know that you're supposed to do X, Y, or Z. I'm following what everybody else is doing. So I'm kind of learning those rules as I go. It's not very fun learning those rules. Just like, really? It's a podcast. Like,
yeah. Well,
I didn't
that's what I was
think
going to
about
say.
there being any rules. I would have no idea.
Yeah, I mean,
how can they stop somebody though? Like, so say I don't know who's an athlete, whoever it is, a wrestler, and you're like, hey, you want to come on my podcast? What stops them? It's not like you're Nike throwing them some sponsorship deal.
Yeah, they're not getting any compensation for it.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it has to go through media relations.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. I've had 68 episodes. Probably 20 of those kids are currently in college or were in college at the time of the episode. And I've had kids on from Cornell, Penn State, Minnesota, Iowa, all the top wrestling schools. And nobody's reached out and said, hey, you didn't do this the right way.
Yeah.
And I do have I have credentials from the NCAA to go to the NCAA tournament as media, from the Big Ten to go to the Big Ten championship tournament as media. So I have press and media access with USA Wrestling. So I'm credentialed media. I'm just kind of I'm not going to do endless research to try to figure out, I'm just going by what other people are doing, and it seems to be working so far.
It sounds like what you're describing, though, Justin, is more of an internal policy at the university or school.
Correct. Yeah.
It's not an actual law or anything like that, where you're talking about endorsements and stuff. That'd be
Correct. And I haven't seen anything. And I think one of the reasons, too, is the NCAA is passing the name, image, and likeness bill, where college athletes starting the 2021-2022 season are going to be able to profit off their likeness. So if a college athlete can profit off their likeness, then it's 100% an internal policy. Again, I've had people on from all the top schools or most of the top schools in wrestling, and it hasn't been an issue.
Gotcha.
But most of it's just me texting them or DMing them, or somebody will listen. Like, I had a kid who went to Illinois. He started following me because he started listening to the podcast, and I DM'd him. I'm like, dude, thanks, for following along. Thanks for listening to the show. Do you want to come on? He's like, totally. I'm a big fan. So that's as far as it goes.
Yeah. And I just heard your podcast with the Bills head coach.
That was good. I listened in.
It's pretty awesome, man. When I saw the advertising for it, I was like, wow, this is big time.
That's one of the reasons I started this podcast too, is I was just talking about it on the episode yesterday with my guest about doing things that make you uncomfortable. And this is totally out of my realm. I have I don't speak eloquently. I don't have any kind of experience in this. I'm just doing what I think would make sense. And for me, it's I'm competitive. So I want to now have the #1 podcast in wrestling. And I fluctuate with that because I don't want fame, and I don't want to be especially as a Christian, I don't want to be so out there. Chip and Joanna Gaines get persecuted for the church they go to. I don't want to be that big.
Yeah.
But I'm competitive. So it's it's constantly trying to figure out who to have on to keep elevating. And I don't want to say the name publicly, but I texted you a name that looks like they're coming on.
I was just going to say, is there anybody you want to mention in future podcasts?
I don't, because number one, I look like a jerk if it doesn't happen, and we're still a month away from it happening. I think the date is July 15th. Okay. So if it doesn't happen, and I also don't want to let anybody else know. This is a great guest, and he hasn't done interviews within this sport. So I'm kind of like transcending the little community and pulling people in, like the Bills head coach, like this guy. Yeah. So I don't want people knowing. I'm too competitive. Like, there's a lot of people with podcasts that go out and say, hey, do you have any questions for so-and-so? Do you have questions for so-and-so? I don't do that because I don't want you to know who's coming to my podcast. I want to all of a sudden say, hey, Sean McDermott was just on the podcast. Yeah. Otherwise, if I say, hey, next week, Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott's coming on the podcast, let me know what questions you guys have. What stops the bigger players from saying, all right, we've got a good shot if he did his podcast, which may be true, may not be true, but I don't even want them trying. You know, it's like kind of a competitive edge. If I can get this person, I don't want you even knowing it's a possibility until I already did it.
Sure.
Here's a question, Dave. You mentioned wrestling is not going on. WWE is going on, all right, without an
very
audience,
awkwardly.
which is odd.
Awkward.
And guys,
I can't watch it.
I just did we just did a comedy show last weekend in the parking lot at Comedy at the Carlson, and it was different, and it had to be tough for the comics because they feed off of the audience, and so like the comics saying give me a signal, give me something that I could feed off of. So people started flashing lights, and the comics says, geez, I feel like I'm in the movie Cars. And it was true. And it was even odd as an attendee, as a person there to feel the same vibe. So I'm curious, like, what's the plan right now for both wrestling and or the NFL? I know you just had Sean McDermott on. Like, are they planned scheduled to play?
As of now, everything's starting to open back up. I actually just got Bills season tickets, which I'm pretty psyched about. Yep. Yeah. Me and Vince both grabbed a couple. Okay. So I'm super excited. I'm doing it half because I like the Bills, half because I think it's a good business play. Like, take people and
Is it normal capacity? Are they doing every other seat?
As of now, that's what when we were talking about, like, I committed for 3 years of tickets, and I asked him, I'm like, this year, he's like, I don't think we're going to do training camp at St. John Fisher. Not sure if training camp is going to be open to the public or not. But as of now, they have not come out and said anything is going to be different this year. I mean, it's a ways away. We're still, 3 months from opening regular season week. So we'll see. I'm hoping it's regular, man. I'm hoping it's not, I don't know how you'd have a reduced capacity at a football stadium. Do you only let season ticket holders in? How do you control? What if one whole group is season tickets and one whole section is regular seats that are just sold to whoever? Like the Bills, I imagine, have a lot of season ticket holders, and a lot of those just resell the tickets. So let's just say that they said, okay, we're going to play football with half-filled stadiums. How do you control which half you fill?
Correct.
I think that could be dangerous. You got to almost go all or nothing, I would think.
Well, it's kind of like even with our church opening back up, like some smaller churches have opened back up, and 25% attendance?
Yeah.
Like when you have, like, Justin, how many people would you say go to our church? 800 to 1,000?
Yeah, something like that.
Ballpark. So, like, how do you do 25%? Who do you dictate goes to what service? Like, it just becomes really dicey, and so.
I think that's one of the reasons they're going to wait until the end of the month, because by then it'll be phase 3, now we're in phase 3. Hope by the end of the month it's going to be phase 4. Yeah. And I think if it doesn't, and I don't know, Dave said he made a video with like all these different rules and regulations to follow. And I'm assuming it just wasn't worth it from a standpoint of what you would have to set up. And I'm assuming it's like, it's all frivolous, like in one door, out another door, one this, one that. Do you have to wear a mask? Like, even if you can, like you said, for 25% of the people, dude, Calvary's a small church, and those people who want to be there, they want to be there. If all of a sudden you start having I don't think there's a good way to do it, because if you put it out on social, you're going to be viewed as discriminating against older people who aren't as checking it as often. If you're doing it through email, you're kind of neglecting the younger people who want to see it on social. What do you do? A lottery? Like
it really is. It's a lose-lose, man. And then the problem with that, though, is that now you get people that like were diehard. I've been going here forever. They get upset. They get offended. It's so easy how just human emotions takes over, and it's like, how come they can go to this one, but and it just causes more problems than I think it's worth.
Yeah, and some churches, like, I saw like one in Avon was basically like, hey, we're opening up, email us if you want to RSVP. I'm imagining in Avon, there's not that many people that are going to, I don't know if it's like, I don't think it's a Calvary Chapel. I think it's like a Grace Life or something that's just like a small church. So for that, fine. But a church like Calvary, like, yeah, I don't know. That's going to, he said 28th or the 21st, maybe. But I have a feeling it'll be the 28th.
Yeah, the last Sunday of the month. I just thought it was, and we could talk about this for a while. And I was just reading this crazy thing about the coronavirus, and it's like, the coronavirus is the strangest virus I've ever heard of. It's very dangerous the way it's spread. It's so mysterious the way it lurks in schools, but then dies at Home Depot. It can wreak havoc in churches. Praying people are exceptionally vulnerable, although it's mind-boggling how it vanishes when people stand close together holding signs, destroying businesses, homes, properties, monuments, etc. Yet standing to watch a marathon or concert triggers its wrath, and it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well, there was one, and I've been trying to stay off social media to some degree because there's so much far left and so much far right stuff. Yeah. You almost, number one, it's toxic at times to get involved in it, and it's very easy to get drawn in. And I had saw one thing, I don't know if it's true or not, but it was like, gatherings are limited to 10 people, protests are limited to 100 people. And everybody's like, all right, we're having a family protest in my backyard tomorrow. It's like at this point, like my mom and her husband both had the coronavirus. They both got it. They were out for a couple of weeks, and they're feeling better now. And I don't want to diminish what it is, but it's like the media narrative on it right now is so all over the place. It's like, just pick a dang side. Now they're saying don't wear a mask if you haven't had it. Then they're saying, okay, if you're asymptomatic, you can't give it to people. The amount of just confusing information out there is wild. Meanwhile, businesses are dying. People are losing their minds literally in their home. Mental illness on the rise.
Suicides, all that stuff.
Right. Domestic abuse, so many things.
And basically, if you do get corona, I mean, just cold hard statistics, you have over a 99% chance of surviving. I mean, that's the real data,
And my mom and her husband, like my mom's just turned 60, I think. I think her husband's like 70, and I don't think they went to the hospital or anything. It was just like having a flu, or you're uncomfortable, but you're not like, it wasn't that bad. And they had it, and they're the closest people to me that I've seen have it. I know some people that have health issues, it might be worse, and that there's other people that if they do get, like, I get all that. But from a standpoint of what we're seeing, especially now in June, like, enough is enough. Open businesses, open churches.
It's time.
Yeah.
It is time. And I'd love to like dive down all that road, but obviously for the sake of time, we'll kind of end it there. Couple quick questions for you, Justin, just for some giggles here. WWE.
Yes.
Ready?
Yeah.
So typically this is the part of the podcast where we ask who your favorite superhero is, or if you were an animal. But we're gonna do some special questions for you since you're a wrestling buff.
I love it.
All time, who is your favorite tag team wrestler?
Does the Macho Man count?
As a tag team?
I mean, the Mega Powers were kind of right.
Yeah. So you could say Mega Powers.
I
Wait, who's the Mega Powers? So you had Macho Man and who?
Hogan.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
I guess I don't correlate with that. Yeah. It's a little foggy.
Growing up, The Rock and Austin were my favorites. The
Yeah.
more I started watching old footage and old wrestling, like to go back and watch Macho Man promos, like, ooh, I'm the cream of the crop. I'm going to rise to the top. Like to go back and watch that, like
Dude.
I grew so much more. And I had like those, I don't know if you remember them. They were like wrestling pillow buddies.
Oh yeah.
I
had an Ultimate Warrior, Hogan, and Macho Man. Ashley just reached out to my mom last week, and I'm like, "Hey, how you feeling? Corona's gone, right? Okay, do you know where our wrestling buddies are?" I think I sold them. I was so bummed. I'm like,
dude. We were too poor. We couldn't afford it, man. I asked for one every like Christmas and birthday for like 5 years.
Really?
I never got one.
Yeah, I got those, and man, I missed out on some stuff in my childhood, but having a wrestling buddy, I needed those. But, you know, I'd say like Rock and Austin were my favorite. Now it's probably like Macho Man and Hogan. Tag team, it gets so, like, I don't know. It's like you're having these tag teams like the Shield too now. And
wrestling today.
Tag team?
What's that?
Who's your favorite individual from a tag team?
Oh, no. So my favorite tag team of all time is old school, Demolition. I don't know if you remember Demolition. Yeah. They had the spikes and stuff. They absolutely my favorite tag team. If I'm going favorite wrestler, I mean, when I was a kid, obviously it was Hulk Hogan. But like as an adult looking back, like you said, Macho Man had like his promos were awesome, and his in-ring, like him off the top rope dropping an elbow was awesome. But then when we went to college, Constantine and I, at UB, it was like every Monday night, everyone would load into our common area. We're watching Monday Night Raw, you know.
That was the best.
And it was. I mean, there was Rock, Stone Cold. There was the whole Attitude Era, and it was so much fun.
Matt Merrick used to call me at like 7:59 and 8:59 for like the Monday Night Wars. We would call each other like, "Who's coming out to kick off the show?" We'd call each other at the close of the show. Did you see what is going to happen next week? Like, I don't think I enjoyed anything as much throughout my childhood as wrestling, which is how wrestling carries itself for adults. Because the big majority of it is it's nostalgic. Wrestling is the ultimate nostalgia. Yeah,
agreed. My problem with today's wrestling is that Attitude Era of in the Monday Night Wars and all that stuff, like from a marketing, from like when you talk about the business side of it, like they created something that was so like it sucked people in, you know?
Yeah.
And I think they've gotten so far away from it. And I understand with the PG era now and how, you know, Vince McMahon said, like, I don't need to do all that because I sell so many John Cena t-shirts and you know, the headbands and the armbands and all that. So I don't have to go that route anymore to be risque. I think it just drew in so many people because of the craziness, the madness.
And by the way, spoiler alert, if anybody listening actually cares, the guest that Dave was referring to was from the Attitude Era in the WWE. And I will leave it at that. I'm not going to say anything else.
Yeah. That is true. That's it. Awesome. If somebody wants to talk, and by the way, Monarch Wealth Management's website, created by Basch Solutions, and we have a couple of different friends. I think of Clefane Hyson Johnson, local law firm. I think their website that you did, Justin, was phenomenal. I really, really loved their website.
Kevin. I couldn't think more of Kevin.
He's a good guy. He's a good dude and a great attorney. He's my personal attorney.
He's mine too.
Yeah, I vouch for him. If somebody is interested in talking to you about social media or about designing a website, how do they get a hold of you, Justin?
Email me, jbash, B-A-S-C-H, at bashsolutions.com.
Okay. Anything else we need to know about you or your companies that you wanted to kind of give a shout out for?
No, if you're a wrestling fan, listen to Bashmania.
Awesome.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks again, Justin. Justin Basch from Basch Solutions. Had a lot of fun with this, boys.
Yes. Thank you for your time, Basch.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Let's do it again.
Take care, guys.
Sounds good. See ya.
You've been listening to PennyWise Financial, brought to you by Monarch Wealth Management. Constantine and David really care about their clients. They want to make sure you're happy, so you'll continue to hire them. There's no commitments, and clients are free to leave whenever they want. Think about being able to pick up the phone and call someone for guidance and advice on almost anything, from buying a car, selling a home, buying vacation properties, or even selling a business. Reach out on the website at monarchwealthmanagement.com. There are 2 offices in Rochester and 2 offices in Buffalo. Reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, or call us toll-free at 800-480-1580. That's 800-480-1580. Until next time, this is PennyWise Financial, signing off.
The opinions voiced in this program are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA and SIPC.